What is up, YouTube? High Tech Lab here. Today I am in the electrical room. This is pretty much day 2, and I'm working right now on getting these conduits done. I've pulled all the wire that was in there out. I have them ready to go. I landed a ground bar in that can. That way all the grounds can be all connected there, and I only need one number 6 ground running back to the panel. So what I'm gonna do is, now that this is all pulled out, minus this this boat right here of circuits, I'll pull that out here in a minute. But what I got to do now is I got to so the gutter is gonna come across the bottom here, and then I'm gonna have a piece coming up here. And what that is that's a 6-inch gutter. I got to get all these conduits cut. If you look at the panel, 6 inches over, and landed with connectors. So this right here, this is going to come out, and now this gutter, conduit is empty. So now this is going to come out. This is empty. So now I'm ready to get these cut to length. So I need to get some gutter going and also cut to length. So I'm going to go ahead and tackle that now. Here I am, 55 3/4. I have a mark. I am going to line up my combo square. Get my pen. Now this saw has a 1/8 curve, so if I get this perfectly square and line it up, this Sharpie should have the same size curve as that saw, so the width of the line shouldn't matter. So I'm at 55 3/4 to this edge of the line, so if I cut the line off, I will be perfect. So I'm going to get this marked square, and I'll show you one more time, and then we'll cut it. Alright, so now we're marked, and my reasoning for marking it all the way around is I know for a fact this saw won't be able to cut the entire size of this material in one cut, so I'm going to have to roll it. So I have my lines already in place, so that way when I do roll it, everything just falls right into place and I can hit the exact same cut. Now what I do need to do before I start, because I wasn't the last one to use this saw, if I can get this piece of gutter out of here. First things first, especially when it's not been used in a while, is you got to square up your fence. And if you look carefully, I have a slight gap there, no gap there. So if I would have just gone and cut this, I would have been SOL. It would have been a crooked cut, and it would not have been good. So I can go ahead, square this guy up. And that looks pretty square. And I know for sure this saw cuts true to this side. So many people may say, hey, you can't square it like that. If you look, we're square that way. If you look, we're square that way. That's double checking, triple checking. That's how we know we are going to cut dead on. I got one more trick, and then we're going to cut it. I have my square back on this line, and I'm going to line it up dead on where I want my cut to be. And I'm going to take my box cutter, and I'm going to score a line down here. And what that's going to do is, when this blade is cutting, you'll see here in a second, it'll follow that groove that our box cutter has put. So now, since we are real close to capacity of this saw, the guard hits our gutter. So we're going to have to open this. And we don't want to be touching the metal, but we want to be close, and then we can start. Alright, so now we're trimmed up. We had a little bit of a apprentice mark right here where the cut stopped, but that'll be in the back, so it won't be quite so noticeable. Now this has quite a few burrs on it, so we got to deburr that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So here I am, all deburred and good to go. This is my gutter end. This goes like this in here. Okay, but we have one problem. If you look at the cut end, there is a notch on the front, so we need to, I was real close to those screws, but we need to go ahead and notch this guy out, so that way that can sit in there flush. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a mark, and I'm going to cut it with a grinder and cutoff wheel. Alright, so now I have my notches cut in here. I didn't have my grinder like I wanted, but I ended up just using a metal hacksaw, but it's kind of a hack way to do it. That's why they probably call it a hacksaw. But now I'm going to go ahead and get this cover in here. Now I need to drill these holes, so all I'm going to do is simply set it up here against the side, line it up, and mark it from the outside, and that'll give me the location to drill my holes. Okay, so I have drilled 6 3/16 holes, so now I can go ahead and take my cover, and as you'll see, if I line it up just right, it matches. I'll get that screwed on right now. Alright, so now I have my gutter end capped, and this is the top because it's the least seen. So what I'm going to do now is I have this clamped in here, and it lines up pretty freaking good at the back with our electrical panel. So I'm going to take my Sharpie, and I'm going to give an extra 1/8 up here, which is about right there, and right there. So that's for the top 2 conduits, and you can see flush, it's about 1/8 and 1/8, and I'm gonna go right about there and right there, and you can see now wherever the camera is, it is pretty dead on where I want to be. Now I gave the top ones 1/8 of an inch because if I can find a connector somewhere in here. Well, either way, there's a raised boss on these connectors that requires some extra. So I'm going to go ahead and take this gutter now down and get the Sawzall and go ahead and cut those pipes. If you're thinking a little more ahead than I am, there are still wires in these pipes that are live. So I got to take those out first before I cut the pipe. So here I am at the point where I'm putting in the knockouts. So here I have my lock ring. And I've already kind of jumped the gun. I marked the pipe as much as I could. I'm going to take my lock ring and line it up as best as I can. Now I've scribed a line so that both these pipes are at the same location. And now I'm just going to simply take my marker and mark around the lock ring. So now that I've marked the lock ring, I have the proper location to place my punch die. So that's going to go on there like that. And I have this side, the other die. So this is gonna come through here like this, and the other piece is gonna thread on. Now I've lined my die up where I want to punch it, and it is completely tight. And all you gotta do is go to the other end. You have this ratcheting tool, and we want the side that says on, if it'll focus. And that's going to go up, and then we simply ratchet this until it's punched through. Now we have a perfectly knocked out hole ready to go in place. I'm going to take a piece of unistrut and put it up against this panel, and I'm going to scribe a line, that way I have a place to mark my next knockouts. Okay, so now I have my top of my connector marked, so I'm now going to take my lock ring once again, and I'm going to line it up just like that and mark my circle. Okay, so I have my holes marked out. I changed my mind on this hole because I realized this is just the generator inverter panel, not the main panel. So I added one more hole right there, or knockout I should call it, and I'm going to do the one on top. Now these are symmetrical, so I'm going to go ahead and knock out my panel and then throw my gutter up there and mark my gutter. Alright, so I have this hole in here punched, and then I've marked the gutter. Same thing down here, and the gutter is in place with the connectors up there. We're all the way at the ceiling, so now it's time to pull the gutter out and punch those 2 holes in the gutter. Okay, so I have my gutter in, I have my holes punched out. This is not secured, however. Oh, don't touch that, it may fall. So now I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to get my chase nipples put in place, and I'm going to get some lock rings on there and get this set in place. For those of you wondering, this is what a chase nipple is. So it pretty much goes in one side, sticks out the other, gets a lock ring. Alright, so I've jumped ahead a little. I have the conduit in. Temporarily I have these plastic bushings. I'm going to change those out to these bonding bushings later on. I have my chase nipples in. I have a set lock ring in the middle. Lock ring in the middle. We have the hub on that side. And that's just temporary, so it doesn't nick anything. I decided I'm actually going to change out the interior of this panel with the interior of my new panel. I'll go get that in a second and show you guys. And I'm going to actually have this be the main load distribution panel, because that'll be far simpler for termination purposes of these main feeds. So I'm going to actually, at this point, go ahead and throw the screws in this, oh, I don't need to throw a Phillips bit in there, but I'm going to put the cover on and throw the dead front on the panel once I get a couple of these wires landed, and see how it looks. I know it may be kind of a cluster, but what I decided, I'm going to swap out the interior of this panel with our new panel. This is the distribution one. It kind of matches different cover, whatchamacallit. So it's late. I'm gonna lock this up and go to bed. I wish I could have gotten a little farther, because this is kind of a mess and I really wanted to terminate it, but I really gotta go because I gotta be up in 4 hours for work, so do it all again tomorrow. So we're getting real close to empty on this. Actually, you know what? We only have... That's main. Oh, you bastard. That's out. That's out. That's out. So it appears this goes to the other panel. This is main. This is water pump and a spare circuit. So that leaves lights left. So this thing is almost empty and ready to go. I just gotta, in order to get this out, I gotta get these two charge controllers removed, which means that this pipe right here, that's my solar power coming in. I gotta somehow tap these in to keep them up and running, because otherwise I'll kill everything while I remove this gutter, this conduit, this whole thing. Everything you see right here has got to go. So here's the gutter in with the panel board, and then I'm thinking I'm gonna bring another gutter right across top of here. Other panel board's gonna stop about here, somewhere in there. You can see it over there, and then I'll gutter all the way across the bottom, and I'll have a gutter between the two tops. And I'm going to keep the gutter going all the way down, all the way down, all the way down. It's going to come up. Instead of that LB, it's going to be all gutter right there. And then I'll have, you know, the gutter down low. And then I have over there some 4-inch gutter. And I'll have a second step. That way I can have all my Outback charge controllers. I'm starting with 2, but I imagine in the future I may have up to 6. And I got these 1-inch chase nipples, so I can have these instead of this conduit like this, which I don't like the stress on the wires and whatnot. I'll pull that out and do it proper. 2 chase nipples, that way I'm not exceeding wire fill. I can have controls and power in separate locations. So that's the plan. We're getting there. You know, this is the hard part, is keeping stuff on while turning it off. And all that green wire you see over there on the floor is because I put a terminal bar in the can instead of running it all back to the panel and grounding it at that location. So, lot to go. Stay tuned. This has been High Tech Lab. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye. Here I am, 55 and 3.